Hello. Today we want to walk through some exciting new Snowpark Container Services capabilities that let you collect application telemetry with Snowflake Trail. As an example, let's take a simple Python web application that we've built for Snowpark Container Services. And the code for this is available on GitHub. It's a pretty straightforward app. It has three different routes. One route gives you the stock price, the current price for a given symbol. Another one gives you the top gainers of the day. And the last one gives you the exchange where a given symbol is being traded. And we can dive into the implementation here with paying specific attention to how we've instrumented this service to make the best out of Snowflake's telemetry capabilities. First, let's take a look at how we've implemented logging. We're taking the standard logging library and doing pretty much just standard configuration here. Container Services automatically captures anything that's being sent by the Python process to standard error and standard out. So we're just using a standard logger component. And if we dig into our get stock price method, we'll see interspersed usages of logger.info. In this case, it's reporting an error, or down here, it's reporting the successful return of the method. So it's really that simple to instrument your code with logs. Now, let's move on to something more exciting, which is application metrics. So in the case of a web API, I may wish to know how many invocations that API has received in the last day. And for that, we can look through our OpenTelemetry setup here. Snowpark Container Services automatically collects OpenTelemetry metrics. So they're automatically published from your container to a collector that then sends it to Event Table, which is the centralized location that Snowflake Trail uses to analyze telemetry. So you can see our setup here. And then we're defining three specific metrics, and we'll pay attention to request counter in this example. So this one counts the number of requests into the API. So going back to our get stock price API here, we can see basically every time we receive an inbound request, we add one to the request counter. And we've instrumented a variety of other metrics as well, and you can take a look at the code for that. The last useful feature I want to walk you through is traces. So traces let you get an end-to-end picture of how your code executes, especially as it crosses boundaries between different processes and different services. And that's a distributed tracing scenario. And Snowpark Container Services with Snowflake Trail supports that distributed scenario as calls start inside a container and transition to workflows that run inside the warehouse. So if we take a look here at this section, we're basically setting up, again, OpenTelemetry-based tracing using the standard SDKs. And then ultimately, there's that tracer class here. So let's see how that is used. So if we take a look inside of our get stock price method, we can see that we can basically define a trace and then even have nested spans inside that trace. You can see the usage of tracer here. And that's, again, pretty standard instrumentation, and it's all you really need to do. Snowpark Container Services will automatically lift those traces out of the container and publish them to a central location. Now, we've talked about how we would instrument our code. Now let's hop over to Snowflake and see how to actually make use of this. So here I have a worksheet, and I've created the service already. It's fairly standard. One thing to point out is that in addition to application metrics, we also support platform metrics, which is underlying infrastructure metrics that let you know things like CPU, GPU, memory, utilization of the hosting container infrastructure that runs beneath your application. So this is a nice complement to the application metrics we added. So for example, if you're looking at network, you can get both request count, but also throughput, right, from the platform metrics. So we've already done this setup. So now let's go and actually run our service. So I have the API here. So we can run a few of the endpoints just to generate some data. So let's go and get the price for Microsoft stock today. These are, of course, simulated. You can take a look at the top gainers. And we can look up the exchange, let's say for Apple's stock. And there we go. So basically the API is working as expected. Hopefully this generated some telemetry data. The first thing we're going to do is hop over to the Logs tab in Snowsight. And by default, this shows you all the logs being generated across your entire account. So let's go ahead and filter for logs generated by container services. And for that, we have the filters menu with a new Snowpark Container Services area. So we could just go ahead and put in the service name here. So this is showing us the entries within the last few days. And sure enough, here's some of the logs we generated from our code. So this is the incoming GET request into our stock exchange endpoint. And if we go further down, here's the column to top gainers. Obviously, we control the log output here based on what we emit in our code. So it's that easy to access logs coming out of your application. Of course, the logs continue to be accessible via SQL as well, but now we have a convenient new way to access them through Snowflake Trail as well. Next, let's look at traces. So for that, we'll hop over to the Traces tab. And in this case, the easiest way is we just have to filter by the database where the service is running. So I've already pre-selected that here. And we can go ahead and check out some of the traces. Let's click on this one here. This is that call to get stock exchange. And you'll notice something interesting. The first couple of spans here are code that we ran inside our container in Python. However, that specific endpoint actually calls into a stored procedure running inside the warehouse. And you see we get end-to-end telemetry here. So get stock exchange is actually a Python-based store procedure running inside the warehouse. And so this is incredibly useful, especially if there's performance bottlenecks or complex issues. It's easy to pinpoint errors in whatever part of the stack they're happening in. In fact, I think I have an example here of a trace while I was debugging. So I can go ahead and click into the stored procedure trace here. I can explore the events that happen inside the span. And sure enough, I had a SQL compilation error in my stored procedure that I had to address. Last but not least, let's take a look at the application and platform metrics. So for that, we need to use SQL to explore the metrics data we've captured inside of our event table. And so let's start with that request count metric that we instrumented in our application code. I can go ahead and run this simple query, and it returns the request count. And this is best visualized as a chart. So this is the last time I restarted my application, so you can see as I continue to do more requests, the counter keeps increasing. So that gives me an idea of the usage of my API. But what if I want to explore some of the platform metrics, such as this next query, which will look at CPU utilization. Go ahead and run that. And again, this best visualizes a chart. I can see the CPU usage over the last hour, I believe, in this query. And this is a pretty lightweight API, and so you can see just the little spikes every time I invoke the API. But obviously, you can translate this to much more complicated applications and look at not just CPU, but also GPU and memory use. So that's application telemetry for Snowpark Container Services in Snowflake Trail. Please give it a try and let us know if you have any feedback. Thank you very much.